Hello, today is the 12th of April, 2016. This is Athens Speakout. I'm journalist David DeWitt, here with retired historian from Ohio University, Professor Robert Whaley. And the subject for today is the race for the Republican and Democratic nomination, Part 4. So we'll begin by asking what were the results of the Wisconsin primary, the 5th of April, 2016?
Okay, on the Republican Party, the polls closed at 9 p.m. for both the Democrats and the Republicans. There was a 5-minute difference. They counted those votes speedily, with only 2% of the vote out. It was predicted by the pundits, okay? So the surprise for Trump was that Ted Cruz of Texas won the Wisconsin primary for the Republicans with 1,789,000 votes, and he got 53% of the vote, and he got 24 delegates. And they have a winner. In the Republican, they have this winner-take-all thing. So when it came to the delegates, Trump got 0 delegates, even though he had 31% of the vote. And John Kasich had 49,800 votes, and he got 0 delegates with 14% of the vote. So the delegate disparity between Cruz and Trump and Kasich is one more sign that the undemocratic nature of the Republican Party, the Republican Party establishment, is still dedicated to money. But the new slogan, a part of the Republican establishment, is "Dump the Trump." And it seems that Trump has kind of peaked, and Cruz has been winning the last couple of elections.
He has.
Yeah, that's...
Do you call it undemocratic because the delegates are not awarded proportionally?
Yeah. In other words, if the Republicans counted the way the Democrats, Trump still would have got some delegates.
Right.
But in Wisconsin, he got 0, and Kasich got 0. Mm-hmm. If it was a Democratic thing, they'd give Kasich 1, and they'd give Trump 15, and they'd give Cruz 20 or something like that.
But in this case, Cruz was able to walk away with a lot of them, or all of them.
He got the whole Wisconsin.
And he's going to use that as claiming that he has the momentum, the big mo.
And after Wisconsin, Cruz has been winning more and more, and Trump has been losing more and more. Now, Trump is hoping for the big comeback in New York.
Yeah,
that's his big state. This is where
so we may not have seen peak Trump yet.
Not yet. New York is going to be a real test.
Do you think that Kasich's second in New York, so Cruz isn't going to win New York?
Kasich is second in New York.
The last polls that I saw, Kasich was polling in second in New York.
Well, who's first?
Trump.
Oh, Trump is making a comeback.
Yeah.
That's all we're predicting that.
Right.
Trump is going to make a comeback, and Southern Baptists don't win in New York. I wonder how many counties do you think Cruz will take?
Maybe some western New York counties.
Yeah, very northwest, up around Buffalo.
Right.
The Finger Lakes, the old
Finger Lakes.
What they used to call the Millerite, or the Millerites, the Seventh-day Adventists. Did you ever hear of Miller?
Miller?
A guy by the name of Miller.
I don't think so.
Well, Miller was a New York fundamentalist back in 1844.
Okay.
He predicted that the end of the world was going to be in October of 18... This was the Advent. He was going to go up on a mountain with his congregation, and they were going to wait for the second coming of Christ.
Yeah, how'd that work out for him?
Well, they got up on the mountain, and Christ didn't appear.
I'm shocked.
So Miller was so embarrassed.
Let me guess, he had to change the date.
Well, no. Miller was embarrassed. He closed the religion down, and he moved to Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And he called his new denomination the Seventh-day Adventists.
Oh, yeah.
That's where they came from.
This is where we know of today.
That's a survival of the Millerites.
All right.
It was embarrassing.
I'd imagine it would be. It's a bold prediction.
But that's the interesting thing about religion. People make hard and fast predictions, and then they don't come to pass.
That happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
Especially about the end of the world or the return.
The end of the world has been predicted for 2,000 years, hasn't it?
Yeah. So do you want to, let's talk about are you done with the Republican
Well, let me
results?
see. I was finishing up here with the delegates and Wisconsin. I just got off on a footnote on religion, but we'll come back to that when we get to New York.
Okay.
Religion will play again. Anyway, Hillary was claiming to be a liberal Democrat, and the Republicans had the Hillary, the Democrats had the Hillary Sanders race, but the Republican prophets from Wall Street were behind both Cruz and Trump. And Trump has his own money, real estate.
Yeah.
And Cruz has the oil money of Texas. So it's big oil versus big real estate in the Republican thing. And
But it should be noted that Trump has been going around saying that he hasn't taken any money from anybody. He's totally self-financed his own campaign, and that's a lie.
That's a lie. Okay.
I just want to note that. He has taken money.
Okay. Well, I guess you have some information I don't have, but that's why you're a journalist and I'm only a historian looking at the past.
OpenSecrets.org.
Yeah.
Anyone can visit there. You can see where all the money's coming from and where it's going. He's taken less money than most other people. But
less. Okay. Well,
so
Trump claims he's getting nothing from banks.
Yeah, I would have to. No, I would have to look at it, but I don't believe that. For some reason, I don't take Donald Trump at his word. I don't know what it is about him.
Sanders is saying, I don't take money. I only get it from.
Sanders. Well, Sanders has been mostly small. You can break it down from large individual contributions, small individual contributions, and then sector and all that different stuff. So.
And the latest word from Sanders is, "I will not be bought by the banks." That implies that Hillary can. Well, we'll see how far that slogan works.
Speeches for Goldman Sachs count, speakers' fees. Do you want to go over the results for the Wisconsin primary on the Democratic side?
Yeah, that's question 2. On the Democratic side, Sanders got 1,155,300,000 votes. 1,155,300,000 votes. That's what he had. And he got 54% of the vote. And in the Democratic primary, he gets 44 delegates. And Clinton took 1,300,780,000 votes, which was 46% of the vote, and she gets 28 delegates.
Right.
So she's in the race in Wisconsin. But Sanders claimed the moral victory of having won that. And this raises the question of the viability of socialism. And I just want to remind the people that back in 1912, the United States had a close election, and there was a viable socialist party, and Eugene Debs took 10% of the vote.
He did.
In 1912. And the Republican Party was split into 2 factions.
Because of Teddy Roosevelt decided to run again.
And from our standpoint, they were all liberals. The Republican mainstream was a liberal governor of New York by the name of Charles Evans Hughes, who later served on the Supreme Court. And he was relatively liberal compared to the rest of the 48 states then. And Teddy Roosevelt was to the left of Hughes by proclaiming a populist, progressive coalition,
The Bull Moose.
the Bull Moose Progressives, and officially it was the Progressive Party, but he picked up a lot of populist votes. And so those four parties.
Woodrow Wilson for the Democrats.
He
won the
was a
election.
liberal. Well, he was a
also
Southern
a liberal,
Democrat.
yeah.
And he
Well-
was liberal.
Princeton.
Yeah. He was the first Southerner to be able to win in a national election. And he was born in Virginia, was kind of racist still, and wouldn't invite any black to the White House. And that's a black mark against Woodrow Wilson's reputation. But in those days, he was a liberal, and he became the president of Princeton and introduced political science. He was a political scientist and a historian, and I guess he was the only PhD who's ever been elected. McGovern
that
didn't
makes
make it.
sense. Yeah. That makes sense. I think it would be just as a historical note, it would be important for people to recognize that through the second, third, and fourth party systems, which is how political scientists analyze American history and politics, there were progressive and conservative factions on both sides,
Right.
Republican and
Right.
Democrats. So you had conservative and progressive
Right.
Republicans, you had conservative and progressive Democrats, and mostly the parties were organized around ethnicity, geography, religion,
Right.
things of that nature, and less around conservative versus Democrat.
Well, in World War I, because of the great fear of spies and socialists, Woodrow Wilson turned to the right, arrested Eugene Debs for treason,
Yeah, Eugene.
for speaking out against the war, and he was put in jail
Right.
for violating the Espionage Act. And Woodrow Wilson then kind of was anti-Bolshevik, anti-Russian, and the Russians never got to the Versailles Treaty. So
Right.
it was four capitalist powers, the British, the French, the Americans, and the Italians, who decided the Versailles Treaty, and the Soviet Union was still in revolution, undetermined. And the United States never recognized the Soviet Union until 1933, when Roosevelt was elected.
Franklin. right.
Franklin Roosevelt. Now, Franklin Roosevelt brings the idea of socialism back because the New Deal was about 1/4 socialists, about 1/4 liberal, about 1/4 Southern conservative Democrat, and another quarter were kind of authoritarian quasi-fascist.
I don't think I've ever heard it put that way,
Well, okay,
the New Deal.
the fascists start after World War II, because Roosevelt closes down some of these socialist experiments, and
Well-
gives General Motors, Ford Motor Company, you guys produce steel, tanks, airplane, Boeing. You know, we got to win the war. Well, that starts the military-industrial complex. That's
Right.
been inherited by the Pentagon. The Pentagon is a kind of a Roosevelt heritage.
Yeah. Well, Franklin Roosevelt, he had a willingness to try a lot of different types of
He
things
was-
and see what worked and roll back what didn't work and go
That's
with
right.
what did work.
Right.
That was he would kind of try almost anything. He'd
Right.
keep a lot of things on the table and then
So from
effectiveness.
1932 and 1936, unemployment was the first and major issue, and only issue. Now in 1940, war clouds, and Roosevelt starts this intervention. And then the debate is aid to Britain before Hitler wins. And then you have this isolationist division, you see.
Well, there were a lot of people who didn't want to go into the war at all.
Right.
Joseph Kennedy didn't want to go into the war. He thought that the
He was
British
an
were
isolation.
doomed.
He was an
and
Irishman.
he thought they
Irishman
were
through
going
and
to
through.
get rolled over and that we shouldn't support them because
Right.
the Germans were
So
just
there was a little bit of an
take
authoritarian element there, and there was, of course, there was the Southern element. Roosevelt needed all of those Southern senators to get things through the legislature, and that was the job of Cordell Hull. Cordell Hull was the senator from Tennessee who was a Wilson man, had seniority, And as far as Roosevelt was concerned, Cordell Hull was his ambassador to Congress. So he was a Machiavellian, and he understood the balance of power. So anyway, Roosevelt then had socialist element. You know, the TVA is a socialist experiment. Social Security is a kind of a socialism.
Yeah. And
social welfare, the CCC,
I think and when we talk about socialism, I think it's important to also note that it's not, socialism means having some sort of democratic control or democratic say over the market forces in the economy.
Right.
It doesn't mean Bolshevik communism.
That's
those
correct.
are not the same things.
That's it.
And I just want to point that out.
That's good. You and I are on the same page. So anyway, the speculation is that in Wisconsin, Sanders had the support of the mayor of Milwaukee, who was an old left-wing Democrat, union boss, and he had the support of Madison, the great liberal stronghold. So Madison and Milwaukee went for Sanders.
Right.
And Hillary took the country districts, the rural areas of
Which
Wisconsin.
fits the pattern of what we've seen mostly.
Yeah. So Sanders is definitely to the left of Hillary. And so we have a split Democratic Party. And we have a long Sanders-Hillary race. Let's see if I want to say anything more about Wisconsin. Well, we talk about the campaign contributions. Sanders says that the average donor is $27. Now, he's been quoting that statistic for several months.
Mm-hmm.
And the anti-Sanders thing is, well, that number must have gone up. He must be raising money. It must be an average of $150. Mm-hmm. But he isn't bringing his statistics up to date.
Well, that's a good talking point. Never let the truth get in the way of a good talking point. That's Politics 101.
Anyway, he's had 6 million donors. That's more than Hillary has. But Hillary has the big ones, which are still to be revealed. Well, I guess we're ready for a third question, unless you have any more comment about Wisconsin.
No, not really. I think the primary in Wisconsin went pretty much as the projections had it going. I didn't see any big surprises come out of the state.
Well, Trump was running for his life because not Trump.
He was having
in the Republican side. Trump got a setback.
He was having a tough week anyway because he made some gaffes.
But on the Democratic side, Sanders
he actually
had
had
to
to
win
pay for his
Wisconsin,
gaffes for
or
the
he would
first
be
time
out.
ever, which was
If Hillary
interesting.
beat Sanders in Wisconsin, Sanders had no more claim.
Yeah.
Because Wisconsin was the most liberal state that he could win in. So he had the Milwaukee vote, the Madison vote. He got the youth, he got the intellectuals.
Right.
And he had enough to win the delegates.
Right. Yeah,
So
that was important because as the contest goes on, he's counting on these later states, and he's going to keep counting on them more and more. Right. But the math is still against him almost no matter how many states he wins.
You're saying in the end, he's not going to take California.
He might. He might, but even if he did, the superdelegate math is still against him.
Yeah, but then you go to the convention. There's a broken convention.
If he takes California, he has the momentum to bring it to the convention. I would think.
Well, I'm not counting him out yet. I'll wait until Sanders says I'm going to give up.
Well,
I'm not going to prejudge it.
I'm never optimistic about anything. So
I'm not. Okay,
you can be optimistic.
No, here's what I say. I don't say that Sanders will win.
Yeah.
I say he should win.
Okay.
And I say the same thing about McGovern. When I was campaigning for McGovern in '72, I didn't say that McGovern will win. I'm saying he should win for the benefit of peace. Right. I put peace first.
Sure.
And
I understand.
The voters should vote for peace and prosperity.
Yeah.
Not for more war.
I'm a Sanders supporter. I always expect the worst. So
Well, you can expect the worst. And
Yeah.
I'm prepared for the worst.
I don't even hope for the best anymore, though. I just expect the
Well,
worst.
then you
I've
become
eliminated the first clause of that
well,
phrase.
then you become a cynic. Then you
Yeah.
say to the voters, well, it doesn't make any difference whether you vote or not.
No.
You're not
It
saying-
always matters
You're
to
stopping
vote.
at cynicism.
Yeah, no, it always matters to vote because either you vote by voting or you don't vote, and you tacitly double the value of some diehard's vote.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you still have some hope, but it's a weak hope.
Well, I think people should always vote.
Gotta hope
They
for-
generally don't listen to me when I say that, or at least half.
Well, I
of them
listen.
don't.
And I think Bob Sheik is listening. He's got a campaign going on internet.
Yeah, but we all vote.
Yeah,
We're not part of the half of the population that doesn't vote.
yeah, okay. Okay, anyway, I think we're finished with the Wisconsin. Do you want to go to another state? What's your next
Yeah.
question?
My
How about
next-
Wyoming?
Yeah, what is the importance of the Wyoming primary
Yeah.
for the Democrats?
Well, Sanders, using the caucus system, got 56% of the vote and half the delegates, 7 delegates. Clinton got 44% of the vote, and she gets 7 delegates. So there's a little bit of conservatism in the Democratic Party, but a little bit of hanky-panky there.
Yeah,
But Sanders is still,
7 and 7.
the delegates are 7-7. It was a moral victory for Trump. I mean, for Sanders.
For
A moral
Sanders,
yeah.
because he won.
He won another state.
Yeah, he won the population.
And he can say,
vote
I
in
have a
another
caucus state. And I can keep the momentum going.
Right.
So Wyoming helps the next race.
Okay.
So, and that's about Colorado. What's the story in Colorado?
What's the story in Colorado?
April 2016, there was a vote right after Wyoming in Colorado.
Right.
It's a caucus state.
Right,
Do you know
another
anything about
caucus state.
Yeah, oh, you're asking me that.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I think I'm supposed. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just speeding up a situation. Well, the Colorado caucus was on Saturday, the 9th of April. And there were 13 delegates for Cruz. He's on the rise. And Trump came in second. And Kasich came in third. And the Republican State Convention, hanky-panky. It was a 2-day caucus. And 13 delegates were decided on Friday, and 21 delegates were decided on Saturday. So
Right.
the Colorado count is still somewhat in limbo.
Yeah, that's a generous way to put it.
Well, anyway, Trump is being trumped by the National Republican Committee. But he's not going to fight Colorado. He said, put Colorado on the hold.
It's not
I'm going to
really-
go in New York. I'm going to get the votes in New York.
Yeah, he
anyway.
really wants New York.
Right.
It's not. It's for that few of delegates. It's almost not worth his time.
Yeah, right. So, in summary, the total delegates are now 743 delegates for Trump, 545 delegates for Cruz, he's still behind, and 142 for Kasich. And Rubio has 171, although Rubio is suspended, and he may come back to the Cleveland Convention. If the Republican establishment can dump the Trump, they may need Rubio.
I don't think that
He'll ever come back.
I don't think if it truly is a brokered convention, if it truly is brokered and Cruz and Trump cannot come to a deal, which we haven't seen since 1920, I believe. I don't think that anybody else who ran will be the nominee. I think they'll go with someone like Paul Ryan.
Well, that's prediction.
Because I don't. Yeah, that's a
predictions.
total prediction.
No predictions. No predictions whatsoever.
But with the problem with people like Rubio and Kasich is that they've already been rejected by the voters. They've already been on the ballot,
Yeah.
and they've been rejected. They couldn't win.
Yeah.
So That's an argument against them at the convention. The convention will
They'll
be...
have to go to a second ballot. If they win in the first ballot, then we can
Well,
get
if it wins on the first ballot, then it's over.
It's over.
If it goes to a second ballot, the real games begin.
That's when the superdelegates come out of the closet and change their vote.
And they already have, every campaign already has what they call delegate hunters.
Yeah.
And these delegate hunters are already backgrounding every single one of these 2,500 delegates,
Right.
figuring out what they can promise them, what they can give them, what their motivations are, how they
Right.
can persuade them to come to their side if it gets to a second ballot.
So the New York Times endorses Hillary, and Sanders has the endorsement of the two left-wing journalists, Nation
The Nation?
and Progressive.
Right. Progressive Magazine.
So Sanders is running the campaign of honesty, and Sanders has the burden of the New York Times and the establishment, who still use the old Richard Nixon line. Liberals are pinks. Pinks are really reds. There's no difference between a democratic socialist and a totalitarian communist. Can they bring that old slogan?
I mean, sure, they will. They already basically say that now.
Yeah.
And they will. They'll try to say that.
Right.
And it'll work on, vast swaths of unthinking
It'll
people.
work in Texas.
Yeah, it'll work plenty of places.
Right.
I mean, it appeals to
rural southeast Ohio, except for Athens.
Except for Athens County. Yeah.
And Gallia County for some strange reason. I don't know how they pulled that off.
Right, how Sanders won Gallia?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
I don't know why or how that happened, but I'm happy it did.
Yeah. There are some disillusioned people in Gallipolis.
Yeah.
Well, their
simple,
welfare payments are going down.
Simplistic
They're on
thinking
food
appeals
stamps.
to lots of people.
Yeah,
obviously.
they understand the issue of poverty down there.
Right.
So, okay, I guess that's about the end of that question. You want to go on to a fifth question?
Well, do you want to talk about if you have any predictions about what? That's not the question.
Well, we'll
that
save
I
that
have.
to the end.
Okay.
I'll talk about New York at the very end.
Okay.
What I would like to say is, what is the total delegate count now? The
Okay.
total delegate, as of April 11th.
Okay.
I think that further figure was just Wisconsin. Anyway, as of April 11th, 4 p.m., that's 2016, this delegate hunt, it's now 743 for Trump, 543 for Cruz, and Casey's just not being counted. And there are 1,257 delegates needed to win in Cleveland when the convention opens.
On the first ballot.
On the first ballot.
When the delegates are still pledged.
Yeah, right.
Trump needs to have 1,237 walking in to Cleveland.
Right. And Cruz needs that too.
Yeah, anybody would need it. I don't think that Cruz can get there at this point. I think that Trump still could get there, but he's going to have to come on. He's going to have to come back strong.
Well, that's what we're going to find out in New York and Philadelphia.
Right.
Because Cruz now has support from the New York Times, has support from the Republican establishment party.
Yeah, they
and
finally.
the senators don't want Trump.
They finally held their nose and decided to support Cruz, which is interesting because in a lot of ways, Cruz's policies
Are to the right of
are
Trump.
far to the right of Trump. Yeah, they're much more. I would consider them much more dangerous and draconian and reactionary and terrible.
Well, he's a reactionary racist.
Yeah.
The South shall rise again.
But the Republican establishment is willing to accept that over Trump, over the danger that they see in Trump.
Because they don't like his deals.
Which is much more, which is much more.
Which is against Wall Street.
Right.
Which is against the State Department.
Right.
In other words, Trump is unpredictable.
Right, and they want, to say the least. And
Okay.
better the devil you know, I suppose,
Okay.
with Cruz. is their thinking.
Okay, so I guess we'll take a look at the Democratic side.
Yeah, Robert, we've reached the halfway point.
Okay.
Time for a station break.
Fine. Well, you can announce it. What are we doing?
This is Athens Speakout. I'm journalist David DeWitt. This is retired historian Professor Bob Whaley, and we are talking about the Democratic and Republican races for the primary of the U.S. presidential election of 2016.
Yeah, and I guess I'm up to the 11th of April, 4 p.m., the latest delegate count.
Okay.
On the AP, according to AP, on the Democratic side, Clinton has 1,756 delegates, and Sanders is still behind, 1,068 delegates. So he's got a long way to go. And then we have the superdelegates.
Right.
Now, these superdelegates can be a plus or a minus.
Yeah.
On the plus side, it looks like Hillary is going to get them.
She's got the vast majority of
She's
them
got
so
the
far.
vast negative. But the negative side is this gives Sanders a talking point.
Oh, absolutely.
Who's
So-
paying for these superdelegates?
Right.
Where are you getting your money?
So, shall I give a little boilerplate about what superdelegates are for
Let me
people
see
at
your
home?
tax returns.
So, superdelegates are mostly elected officials and large donors
Right.
to the Democratic Party who are unpledged.
Right.
The proper term for them is unpledged delegates. So they're not beholden to the popular vote in each of the states. They can decide on their own who they want to vote for as delegates at the convention on the first ballot. This was a kind of a security measure that the Democratic Party put in place after the 1972 nomination of George McGovern, because that election cycle, they got beat by Richard Nixon in 49 out of 50 states. And so they wanted to put some controls in place because the parties are semi-private entities. They're not public entities. They could basically, if they wanted to, draw their nominee their name out of a hat, if that's what they really wanted to do. But they put this control in place so that they would have some measure of control over their own party's nominating process. So that's where these superdelegates came from. They're unpledged, and the vast majority of them so far have endorsed Hillary Clinton in this race. So she is beating Bernie Sanders in superdelegates by hundreds.
Right.
I'm not sure the exact
Yeah, well, I
numbers.
gave you the exact figure.
Yeah.
I can go over that again.
17. So it's like 700.
1756 is Clinton and 1,068 for Sanders. That's the regular delegates.
That's regular delegates.
Now, the
right.
superdelegates, there are 469 superdelegates pledged to Hillary and only 31 for
And third. Okay, so yeah.
He's got very few politicians.
Right, right.
And Hillary has the entire Senate.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone, except for I don't think Elizabeth Warren has made an endorsement.
Right. Well, she has a woman, and she said that she would not run against Hillary, but she would be satisfied with Senator from Massachusetts, and she's hoping to get an appointment from either Hillary or Bernie
Sure.
to be in charge of the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, and tax these corporations, which Bernie is calling for. Let's tax Wall Street.
Right,
Well, you're going to have the Security and Exchange Commission on your side.
right.
Well, Hillary may have a flunky in that office. And then it goes on for another 4 years.
And we'll see. We'll see then, because we'll see if all the tough talk that Hillary's had in this primary about Wall Street is all just hot air, or
Yeah.
if she's truly committed to.
We don't know how liberal she really is.
Yeah, we don't.
We know
don't
she's liberal on feminine. She will do something for the women.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
She's committed to that. And my wife is going to vote for Hillary, come hell or high water. No matter what I say about Sanders, she's still for Hillary.
If Hillary wins, though, we'll be able to find out pretty quick how dedicated she is to holding Wall Street accountable.
Right. Anyway, the Democrats have an advantage because the Philadelphia convention is not until July.
Right, yeah. It's
So after
the fourth weekend in July.
right, and so there's still a lot of slip of the lip. The Wall Street thing could collapse.
Oh, lots of stuff could happen
Germany
between
could
now
collapse.
and then. Yeah,
What are they going to do about these Panama Papers?
there could be all sorts. Yeah, their connections could come out from that. There's a lot that could happen between now and July.
Okay, so
Certainly.
we'll go on to another question, number 7. You got a question for me?
Yeah, what are the class and income differences between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders?
There we get down to some hard statistics. There is an article in USA Today which does some counting of the rich people in New York City. Where does Hillary live? And where does Bernie live? And what are their zip codes? And this article was published in USA Today on the 18th of March. It's got some statistics. Hillary lives in a wealthy district on the Upper East Side called Chelsea. And the average income up there for the chief financial offices is $111 million median income. Now, Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, lives in Burlington, Vermont, where the median income is $37,700. So he's down in the upper middle class. He's doing better than most of us in Southeast Ohio are doing.
I think, well, yeah, I think it's pretty Bernie Sanders has been he was the mayor of Burlington.
Right.
And went from there to U.S. Congress.
Right.
And he really hasn't, as far as I know, he hasn't done anything aside from being an elected official.
Well, he's done a lot for pollution of Lake Champlain.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm not talking about his advocacy. I'm talking about his career, you know.
What do you mean by his career?
What I'm getting at is that he doesn't have a lot of personal wealth.
He doesn't have a lot of... Yes,
He's not like... He is not...
His father was an immigrant from Poland,
Right.
1921. And as he says, he was born in a 3-room apartment in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And his brother helped him get into Chicago because his older brother got a law degree first.
Yeah.
And kind of subsidized him to go to Chicago. And then when he went to Chicago, he became part of the civil rights movement. He starts to try and integrate black housing in Chicago, and was pointing out the hypocrisy of the University of Chicago, an elite white school. But there are slumlords there, and the blacks are paying it.
He's not a personally wealthy individual.
No, he's not personally wealthy.
I think we could
neither was
consider-
Hillary in the beginning, but she had better income from her father.
Yeah, not
She
in
was
the
a
beginning.
Goldwater girl originally.
But, yeah. But I think over the last 30 or 40 years, Hillary and Bill Clinton have done pretty well.
Yeah, they're up the millions.
They're in the high tens of millions, I would say.
So another little quote here in this article is, this is a New York AP Dispatch, April 8th, recently. This is an interesting quote from from Bernie. I'm leading in the delegates, and I will not leave here and go to Wall Street as a fundraiser. I told the union members in Philadelphia on Thursday, I will not be hustling money from the wealthy and the powerful. Hillary can't make that statement.
Too late.
Well, that's good campaign talk. So there's another article. The Democratic candidates claim zip codes endorsements.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go to Greenwich Village. There's where you raise your money. Well, that's the inside baseball.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess we can go on to another question, number 8.
You want to go on to the...
Unless you have something more to say about class and wealth.
No. Well, I think the lines are fairly clearly drawn around class and
Right.
wealth in this primary election.
Well, this 8th brings up a new embarrassing issue.
What happened at the American-Israel Political Action Committee conference, which met in Washington on the 21st of March, 2016.
Right.
And you're going to have to fill us in on that because I did not follow that very closely.
Well, AIPAC stands for the American Israel Pact. It was founded back in 1955. And every year, the Prime Minister of Israel comes to the Congress and comes to the President, whoever that might be, and begs for money. And nobody in the Congress and very few presidents will ever say no to Israel. There have only been 3 presidents who have ever said no. One was Jimmy Carter, and he paid a price for that. The second, surprisingly, was George Herbert Walker Bush, the first Bush.
Mm-hmm.
He said no on the Kuwait War. Israel wanted to get in there. And what's his name? Bush, the elder Bush, said, no, we don't want Israel in there. We're going to have a coalition of the Arab people. We're going to have the Syrians and the Egyptians and the Iranians all put pressure and go against Saddam Hussein. They're going to make Saddam Hussein the villain, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, if you bring Israel in there, then these other potential Arab allies will defect. He's trying to make the State Department it was trying to make a 2-state solution. That was the problem, okay? So Hillary and Trump now, going up to March 2015, Hillary and Trump and Cruz and Kasich all appear at this conference. Now Sanders bugs out. He's a real Jew. He says he's busy campaigning in Arizona, Utah, and Idaho. Good excuse not to appear.
Sure.
But he's sending a signal that he's not a neocon. That's what's embarrassing about this. And he's saying that he is following Franklin Roosevelt. War should only be used in the last resort. Mm-hmm. And he's in favor of the Iranian deal. 5 great powers of the Security Council, plus Germany, are holding Iran for, I don't know, 5 weeks to see if they can't denuclearize their plutonium potential. So Sanders, like I, is for peace first, war only the last resort. I don't think the other candidates can say that. And they're very, very tricky on why they're going to look for Netanyahu's support. So it's a very tricky ball game. Very tricky. Now the State Department is divided between the oil faction and the 2-state solution. But they can't get the 2-state solution because of the friends of Israel in the Congress. Because if Congress does not support Israel 110%, okay, we'll give our primary money to some opposition. And we'll dump people like Fulbright, McGovern. They can have enemies at home. So that's the problem of the elephant in the living room, Israel. Nobody wants to talk about Israel.
No. Well,
that's very
there's
tricky.
really no political advantage in talking about Israel.
Yeah, but the Arabs don't see it that way. The Syrians don't see it
Well,
that way.
yeah, I know. I mean, there are lots of people
We have
throughout the
terrorist
world
groups there.
who have a very intricate interest in the Israel-Palestine question and peace in the Middle East in general.
Right.
But in American politics,
No, they're afraid of it.
yeah, it's not political, especially in primaries, that people really want to dive headfirst into.
No, they're not going to solve it. But the issue is, how do you defeat ISIS or ISIL or this caliphate?
Daesh, yeah.
Now, How are you going to do that? How do you fight terrorism?
I would love to hear the answers to that question because it's a very complex
Well,
situation.
The Dove answer is you got to have a U.S. law defining an act of terrorism. You just can't have every crime and murder and terrorism linked up all together.
That would seem like something that would be in the popular interest, but could you imagine a chief executive kind of giving up that type of leeway?
It all depends whether the chief executive wants a war or whether he wants peace. It depends whether Sanders or Trump is in office.
Right.
No, they don't want to give up power.
Because, yeah, that would, I mean, such a law would give up so
but we
much
had
discretion.
George Bush II, who was going to find nuclear weapons in Iraq and was going to overthrow Saddam Hussein, and he fought for 8 years. And in 2006, a Democratic swing.
Right.
And Cheney and Bush didn't solve it.
No.
Are you suggesting, Robert, that perhaps we should have somebody outside the White House determining what the definition of terrorism is?
No.
I mean, so perhaps the State Department.
No. Well, the State Department is only an advisor. The Secretary of State,
What they're looking for is advice.
the Secretary of State is appointed by the President. Well, when Nixon was in office, he put the Secretary of State aside, Rogers, and said, Rogers, you're just a messenger boy. You take care of the ambassadors. But my real Secretary of State is Kissinger.
Yeah.
And we're going to pull off a dirty deal called the balance of power, and we're going to play ball for nuclear power reasons. Nuclear disarmament is first. And we're going to get Beijing in the UN, and we're going to end the Vietnam War. It's a loser. And as long as you stay there, Mr. Nixon, you're going to lose. Nixon, you're going to lose. Johnson can't solve it. You can't solve it. So we're going to make a secret deal with Ho Chi Minh that we're getting out of Vietnam. And we're telling the Soviets we're going to get out of Vietnam, and we're telling the Chinese. Then you can have the Chinese and the Soviets fight the balance of power game by diplomatic means at the UN. That was a revolutionary change in foreign policy done by Mr. Machiavelli II, Henry Kissinger, who plays both sides against, and he got Nixon elected, and he ended the Vietnam War. Now that was a tricky deal. Now, I'm not a total critic of Kissinger.
I am.
Yeah, he is. Kissinger did extend the war. He did help invade Cambodia. He did invade...
Committed war crimes in Cambodia.
All kinds of war crimes. But ultimately, he ended the nuclear... Well, he brought the nuclear arms race down. Kennedy made the first step in 1963, the Atmosphere Test Ban Treaty. The second step was done by Nixon, going to Brezhnev and signing the ABM Treaty. And the third and final step surprised me. I didn't think it would ever happen. Ronald Reagan turned out a lot better than I thought he would be. I voted no on Ronald Reagan. But the last 2 years, suddenly Ronald Reagan negotiates with the Soviets. And the Soviets say, we can't keep this arms race up. The Soviet Union is going to collapse.
They were on the verge of collapse.
Yeah,
at the
we're
time.
going to have the ABM treaty. We'll both put a freeze on the intercontinental ballistic missile,
Yeah.
and we'll get the Germans and the Poles to have a intermediate force agreement. And Ronald Reagan, through Nancy, I think. Nancy was a great help, and his Christian background. He says, okay. Suddenly, Ronald Reagan turns out to be a better disarmer than either Kennedy or Nixon. And the nuclear, well, it's only a freeze between the United States and Russia. And China agrees to a freeze unilaterally. They're keeping their weapons to 300. But we still have India, we still have North Korea,
Pakistan.
we still have Israel, the elephant in the living room, Netanyahu, they don't want nuclear disarmament. They would like to sabotage this Iranian deal. So war is always a possibility. So I'm still a nuclear dove. Watch out for... Now, I was going to go on to a 9th question, but this is so complicated, I think we'll postpone it. I was going to say, what do we have to say about Benjamin Netanyahu?
Bibi.
Yeah, well,
Bibi's role in American politics?
Yeah, he's...
an instigator the past year.
Right. Well, I think we're going to have a whole hour on him and postpone this.
Okay.
But very briefly, Mitchell, the senator from Kentucky, brought Netanyahu... Mitch McConnell.
Right.
I call him Mitchell.
Yeah, and
He
in an
brought him
unprecedented...
brings him to the Congress.
Yeah, flagrant disrespect of the authority of the executive, the presidency, the executive branch, and foreign policy affairs.
And many Democrats boycotted that and wouldn't sit there and listen to them.
Rightfully so.
And Boehner, too.
Yeah,
Boehner
had some tears and retired. I don't think he could handle it.
Yeah.
I think it was above his head. But Mitch McConnell has nerves of steel.
It was a supreme...
He can sit there with a straight face.
As much as a turtle has a straight face.
He's a poker player.
Right, a little ad hominem there for you.
Say that again.
I called Mitch McConnell a turtle.
The turtle. He has a thick skin, you're saying.
Yeah, that's true. Well, anyway, at least he has a brazen disrespect for the authority of the presidency on foreign policy
Well, he's black.
matters.
He is vulnerable.
The president?
No doubt the Solid South is against Bernie Sanders.
Well, this isn't the first time that they've disrespected this president in an unprecedented way.
Obama is a lame duck.
Well, yeah, technically he won't be a lame. Technically, he won't be a lame duck until after his successor is elected.
And he can play around with decrees.
But he's actually been a stronger lame duck than most other presidents have been.
He's good in this last
It seems like he's enjoying himself a little bit. He's taken some swings.
He's got his decree power.
Yeah.
And he's pulled this merger deal off. He's made a deal by decree. Don't need Congress. Don't need the Supreme Court. I'm going to prevent mergers. Mm-hmm. Bank of America cannot merge with J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
You're stuck now.
He's taken some big swings.
And you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And we can have a lawsuit.
In fact, speaking of, did you hear this week, they haven't announced this yet, but he's thinking of doing a speech, a non-nuclear proliferation speech, going to Hiroshima.
Yeah.
He wants to deliver it in Hiroshima.
That's the great advantage of Kerry.
Yeah.
Kerry is a better Secretary of State than...
You know the Republicans are going to lose their minds if Obama goes to Hiroshima to deliver an anti-nuclear war speech. But I hope he does.
Sure.
I really hope he does.
Kerry was just over there testing the waters.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and they're going to totally lose their minds. They're going to call... I mean, their whole theme of the Obama presidency is that on foreign policy he's been weak and feckless. And they're gonna, play that. They're gonna pull that same card out, and they're gonna, this man's been a travesty, and their nation is so weak. But I don't think he cares what they say. I don't think he should care what they say, and I think he should do what he wants to do. And if he goes to Hiroshima to speak against nuclear weapons, I will applaud him.
So will I. So will Sanders will applaud. Everybody will applaud. And Hillary will either be silent or join the applause.
Right. Yeah, she'll be kind of put in a tough position by that, but that's not really his concern.
So then you can always ask Hillary, well, what took you so long?
Yeah. True. So anyway, I hope he does.
Okay, so do we want to go on to a 10th question?
Sure, yeah. We've got about 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, well, we can finish up this Israel in the elephant in the living room thing. Mm-hmm. What happened to Jimmy Carter's peace campaign? How did Hillary and Bernie handle Carter's administration. What are they saying about it? There's
Have
a
they
question
have
for
they
you.
talked about it? Because usually Carter is held up these days as an example of a weak, bad presidency, which I know I don't agree with, and I know you don't agree with.
Well,
I think that
I
he's
think
gotten
we
a,
may.
Got about 2 minutes.
we've gotten a bad
we'll
rap
have to
on
take
that.
Jimmy Carter up next time, and
Okay.
we'll have to kind of point out the many issues still to come in the New York race. And I guess my final word is a prediction. My latest poll figures are, and you can disagree with these, but according to my son Dick, who lives in Ann Arbor and is a professional journalist like you, well, he's actually a freelance journalist who doesn't get any money. He works for the equivalent of WOUB.
It's hard work being freelance.
Well, he's a WOUB type
Okay.
in Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
and he runs a program called Gray Matters.
Okay.
And he reads the New York Times every day, and he reads the New York Review of Books. He has history
Great.
from me. And his prediction is that in the New York race, Hillary will win. The vote will be 55% for Hillary, 43% for Sanders. On Tuesday, our next show, or next week, and then Bernie's in trouble, but he's just counting votes.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, if Bernie gets 43%, hopefully he'll get 43% of the delegates and can go on to California.
That's what we're going to have to hope for, because every poll I've seen, Hillary is winning in New York, and I expect
Yeah, he's
her
going
to
to
win
win.
the state.
And I think he win, but he shouldn't win.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for having me today.
Well, I thank you for coming and keeping this ball rolling. And our slogan is, debate is necessary for the survival of democracy, oxygen of democracy.
And we're both in favor of that.
And Hillary is less of a Democrat than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, well, we'll see what the voters of New York say.